Good morning. Oh, yeah. I'm Jenny McInerney, and all of you know me by now. So, for those of you who don't, online or watching the videos, I'm a special needs estate planner, and every day I meet families who have loved ones who have special needs. And like all of you, we have family members with special needs. And those individuals go out into the community and function in their daily lives, and we worry about them interacting with local law enforcement. And what I realized is that individuals with invisible disabilities are 7 times more likely to have interactions with the police. And those interactions are likely to turn negative or deadly. And my project seeks to have an invisible disability tag placed on a license plate to kind of alert law enforcement, not just the police, but all law enforcement agencies, that the driver of the vehicle has an invisible disability, not a physical impairment with otherwise a disability tag on their license plate, but an invisible disability, which would impair their responses to the police. I meet with families at least once a week who state that their loved ones will never drive because they worry about their interactions with the police. And I think that's a real disservice to our disability community. There's a lot of individuals who could be driving who are not driving because they're afraid of their interactions with our law enforcement. And I think our community deserves to get out and drive and live a fuller life. This is my daughter, Erin. She's 19 years old. She has invisible disabilities. She gave me permission to share. She has autism, but she also has bipolar and ADHD. And her bipolar causes her to have abnormal responses to law enforcement. And so she did have a car accident back in September. And fortunately, my husband was in the vehicle while she was driving, and he was present when the police arrived. She was very scared and nervous. She did have the yellow autism card, which she presented to the police officer when he arrived on the scene. But that wasn't enough. And if my husband hadn't been present, it could have been a very different situation. And, my husband was like, we need something more. A card to present to a police officer after they've already approached the situation isn't enough. The police, before they get to the vehicle, need to be armed with the information that the driver has an impairment. We already have services and programs in place where we're training law enforcement officers in our state about how to interact with individuals with autism or other disabilities. So why don't we have something in place to alert them at the front end that the driver has an impairment so they can implement that training before they get to that vehicle and have those interactions? And so what my project is to have a tag of some kind, a sticker on the license plate that would identify to the law enforcement agencies that the driver has an impairment. It could be self-disclosed to the state agency to get the tag. It doesn't have to be everyone who has a disability. If you elect to have the tag, you can disclose it. So at this stage, I'm still working to collaborate to get to the right folks in the state to have these conversations. I've been working collaboratively with different agencies in the community to kind of collaborate with other folks to kind of grassroots it. But now I've been put with a wonderful mentor, Daryl. So I expect to now start working from the top bottom instead of the bottom up. And hopefully start getting some more movement. I got the idea because a few years ago, Alabama combined their tags where we used to have a month and a year sticker, and they combined them to just one sticker. And then we have a handicap sticker. And so I got the idea that if we had a disabled driver sticker that we could put on the plate, that would alert law enforcement agencies in a very discreet way, that you're not having to put it all over your vehicle. So my daughter's vehicle, she not only has an autism identification card, we also have an autism driver sticker I got on Amazon on every window of her car, with the idea being we never know if she's in an accident, which window would get blown out, or if she gets pulled over, which window would get rolled down, or which side of the car the police officer would approach from. And we always wanted her to be in the best situation and prepared for any interaction. And so my goals were to reduce the number of negative law enforcement interactions with individuals with invisible disabilities in the state, to increase the number of individuals with invisible disabilities driving in the state of Alabama, to allow individuals to report or identify their disability beforehand with the state of Alabama so that law enforcement has access to needed information prior to their interaction, and to educate law enforcement on prior interactions with individuals with invisible disabilities. And lessons learned, obviously, the stuff is hard. It's hard to make movement. It's hard to kind of get people moving in the right direction and to kind of get something like this going. So hopefully, now that I have a mentor, and now that you guys all know what I'm doing, maybe we can all join forces and get something like this passed. All of you guys have loved ones who have disabilities, so I think all of you have a stake in a project like this in the state, or you know somebody maybe who isn't driving, who could be driving if there was something like this in place. And then you guys have my email and my phone number, and I'm open to questions. Jenny? Yes.
In terms of passengers, is there a differentiation sticker that you are proposing for those that are passengers versus those that are drivers?
So there are programs in place with the yellow dot program for passengers. This was specifically for drivers because I was focused more on the individuals who are electing not to become drivers in the state because they were afraid of these interactions. This is to get more individuals with disabilities driving. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a son who has autism and ADHD, and he is 26 now. And when he was 22, he met a girl on Facebook that lived in a neighboring county, and she invited him to come visit. Well, he didn't have any gas, so he told her he didn't have any gas. Well, mind you, he's 22, but mentally he was like confused. So he goes to Gordo, Alabama, and goes where he's supposed to meet this girl, and she doesn't show up, and he doesn't have a gas. So all he knows to do is ask for money. And so he goes into the gas station because he didn't want to call us. Because that was not even in trouble because all the way in Gordo. Starts asking people for money.
With a guardianship.
He didn't have to.
So, but an ABLE account would be wonderful for a situation like that. Because you could have given him an ABLE card to allow him to use it for something like gas and still been an authorized legal representative. If you guys don't have ABLE accounts, I will help you guys set those up today. Huge fan of ABLE accounts because you don't have to do guardianship to retain control. You can still be an authorized legal representative, and you can still see those funds, and you can be the legal representative on those accounts. But then they still have the authority and that freedom and independence to use the funds in that account. So, yes. And yes. And I understand that there's always going to be challenges with our children who may have some capacity concerns. And we always have to be very protective and cautious with those capacity concerns. But even children who are learning to drive are going to be susceptible to those same types of pressures as well. 16-year-olds, 80-year-olds meet individuals online, and they have those same concerns. I mean, we see those same stories come in with older adults as well. I mean, your concerns and your story about your son are not exclusive to somebody who has autism. That's kind of across the board. It could be a neurotypical 16-year-old, to be honest with you. And so, I encourage you in those kinds of situations to think about resources that are available to our community. And one wonderful resource available to our community without taking away their legal rights is an ABLE account. An ABLE account is a wonderful tool. I really encourage you guys, if you haven't done that, I'll sit down with all of you today before you leave. Set one of those up for your loved one. I've talked to you guys about them before, but it's a wonderful tool, wonderful tax benefits, and I'm a huge fan. I mean, I tell everybody I meet, all three of my children, all three of them have an ABLE account. If your child can qualify for an ABLE account, they should have one, and they should have one today before you walk out the door. It takes 5 minutes to set one up. And that's the end of my presentation.